Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and loopylamb.com, and thank you so much for stopping by the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my tutorial for how to crochet my Teal Tempest Blanket. Now this is a recent design that I've just done using Furls Wander yarn, and it makes a really cozy blanket, and I can't wait to share it with you. So we're going to walk through how to crochet this blanket in the tutorial, and it's beginner friendly, and once you get the row repeat down, you'll be off to the races and you'll be done your blanket in no time. So let's hop on into what materials you'll need to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial, you'll need the following materials. You'll need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference in 4 different shades. So I'm using Furls Wander yarn, and I'm using the colors Mist, Agave, Peninsula, and goodness, I always forget this one, Patina. And now Patina and Agave are actually substitutions for the yarns that are actually used in the sample pattern, which I'm actually using the color Surf in the main pattern and the color Tundra, but these are just being subbed in just because they're easier to see on the camera than these two. One's too light and one's too dark. So we're just going to get rid of those now that you know what the original colors are. As for yardage, you're going to need 3 balls of your color A. For me, that's Mist, which is approximately 291 yards. In color B, on the sample pattern, it's the color Surf, and you'll need 4 balls or 365 yards. For color C, which is Peninsula in the written pattern, is 4 balls or 365 yards. And for color D, which is Tundra in the written pattern, you'll need 3 balls and approximately 291 yards. You'll also need a J or 6mm crochet hook. I'm using this beautiful hook from Furls Crochet here. And you'll need a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors. Now this is totally optional if you're absolutely new to crochet and you haven't worked into turning chains before. I recommend having these stitch markers handy because they will help you further into the pattern, and I'm going to show you how we'll use them later. So absolutely optional if you don't feel like you need them. Now, the lapgahn size of the pattern in the written pattern on the blog that's available free is the lapgahn size, and that is approximately 36 inches wide by 48 inches long. However, on the blog, you can find a chart that breaks down how many stitches, how many rows, how many starting chains you need, and how many balls of yarn you need in order to make this blanket in up to, I think it's 13 different sizes stroller all the way through king. So that is available for you. And if you'd rather just have the stitch multiple because you want to switch up your yarn, I'm going to share that with you in a few moments as well. Now for your gauge information, the gauge for this blanket is 15 stitches by 10 rows equals 4 inches in the ripple pattern that we'll be working on. And a gauge swatch has been written out and is available for you on the blog as well. I'm going to be making a smaller sample of the blanket here because if I made a whole size blanket, it just will not fit. So you're going to be making a gauge swatch here, and I'll explain that as we're going as well. Now, gauge is not vital to this pattern, but it will affect the size of your finished blanket and the amount of yarn that you're using. So let me clear off my workspace here and we'll hop on into crocheting our Teal Tempest Ripple Blanket. To start our ripple blanket, we're going to need the first color that we want to use, and for me that is the color Mist, and we're going to need to create a slip knot. So laying the tail end of the yarn across your palm, we're going to wrap it around our fingers and bring it around the front and cross it over itself like this to create an X. Now while maintaining the tension on the yarn, we're going to flip your hand over and bring the yarn so it lays across the top of your fingers. Then we're going to pin the yarn between your ring finger and your middle finger here. Now this next part can be done either with your crochet hook or your fingers. I'm going to use my crochet hook here as it will make it easier for you to see. So we're going to take our hook or fingers and we're going to insert it under the first strand and over the second. Then we're going to drag that second strand out and under the first one. And then while we're pulling on that hook, we're going to very gently remove our fingers, transferring all of the yarn onto the hook. Now we're going to grab both yarn tails with our thumb and pull up on the hook to tighten our slip knot. Now grab the end of the yarn that's attached to the ball, and we're going to give that a tug to bring the slip knot up to your crochet hook. And now we're ready to create our foundation chain. Now, when you want to do the Teal Tempest Blanket in a different yarn or a different size, you need to create a chain in a multiple of 17 plus 3. So what that means is you're going to create multiple chains in the number 17. So you'll do 17 chains, then add another 17 chains, and then another 17, and so on until you have your desired length. Then once you've reached your desired length, you'll add an additional 3 chains. Now, if you're not great with math, you just don't want to count, you can go ahead and Google multiples of 17, and that will help you out. But for the lapgahn size in the pattern for the Teal Tempest Blanket, you'll need to create a chain of 139. And again, the lapgahn size is 36 inches wide by 48 inches long. If you want to make a gauge swatch for your blanket to make sure that you're on gauge, then you would create a chain of 54. All right, so let's create our foundation chain. So to do that, we're going to yarn over and pull the yarn through the loop on our hook to create our first chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through again to create another chain. And we're going to continue to do this yarn over and pull through on our hook until we reach our desired number of chains. And again, for the lapgahn size, you're doing 139 chains. And for the gauge swatch, you are doing 54. So if you'd like to pause your video and do your desired number of chains, I'll meet you back here in just a moment when I'm done my chain to show you how we're going to start with row 1. All right, so I'm back and I'm ready to start with row 1. For row 1, we're going to work a double crochet in the 4th chain of the hook. Now, when you're looking at your chains, you never count the yarn on your hook as a chain. You're going to start counting in this first chain here, and you're going to count over 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to place my thumb next to that 4th chain so I know where I'm going to be inserting my hook. So to do a double crochet, we're going to yarn over hook and insert our hook into that 4th chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And that's your double crochet completed. Now, these skipped 3 chains do count as your first double crochet. And if you are relatively new to crochet, or you find that sometimes you just miss working into that, I'll call it a chain 3 in other rows, then this is a good time to bring in that stitch marker. And what I like to do is I like to place that stitch marker in the 3rd chain or the top chain here and lock it in place. So that way I know where I need to end my row on the next row. Even if I'm mindlessly crocheting watching Netflix, then I can very quickly find that that is the last stitch. All right, and then I'll easily identify if I've missed it as well. All right, so in the next chain, we're going to work 2 double crochets into the next chain. So we're going to yarn over and insert into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. 3 loops should be on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, now we're going to work a double crochet back into that same chain. So yarn over into the same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we're going to work 2 double crochets into the next chain. So yarn over into the next chain here, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, and 1 more double crochet back into that same stitch. All right, so what we're going to be doing now is a series of decreases that is going to create what I like to refer to as the valley, because when you're doing a ripple, it's going to go down into a valley and then back up to a peak. So I think that personally that referring it to as valleys and peaks will help you kind of understand how this fabric is structured and can help you understand where you might make mistakes when you're crocheting it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to skip one chain and we're going to double crochet once into the next chain. And by skipping that one chain, we are eliminating a stitch. All right, so we're decreasing by one there. So then we're going to skip one and double crochet into the next. And we're going to do this skip one, double crochet into the next stitch. We're going to do this a total of 5 times. So we've done that twice now. So we're going to skip one, double crochet into the next. That's 3. Skip one, double crochet into the next. That's 4. And then skip one and double crochet into the next. That is 5. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to skip one chain and we're going to work 2 double crochets into the next chain. And we've already done that already. So into the next stitch here, we're going to work our 2 double crochets. And when we're working 2 double crochets into the same stitch, we're doing an increase. And when we're doing these increases, the increases are what create the peak of our ripple. So we've done one set of double crochets and we're going to do 5 more sets of double crochet. So we're doing 2 double crochets in each of the next 5 stitches. So into the next chain here, we're working 2 double crochets. Into the next chain, 2 double crochets. Again, 2 double crochets into the next. And let's take a look. We're at 4, so we need to do it 2 more times. 2 double crochets into this next chain. 2 double crochets into the next. So let's lay this piece down so you can see what we are doing and how it is affecting our piece. So you can see that we're starting to have that beautiful ripple happening in our fabric. And again, this is happening because of the high level of shaping that we're doing in our pieces. So let's stretch this out a bit so you can kind of see what we've got going on. When we skip one stitch and double crochet, or one chain and double crochet into the next, we're not just creating this really pretty eyelet pattern, but we're also decreasing our stitches. So instead of, if we had worked into every single chain there, we would have had 10 stitches, but instead we only have 5. So then when we come up here to our peak here, we're doing 2 double crochets into each chain, and that's creating an increase. So we're having extra stitches added here. And so that is what is shaping our piece. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to repeat this skip one chain, double crochet into the next. We're going to do that 5 times. Then we skip one stitch and then do our increases, which is again, those 6 repeats of those 2 double crochets in one stitch. We're going to repeat that all the way across our chain until there are 4 chains left to be worked. So again, if we're just finished our last peak, so we're skipping one chain, doing a double crochet into the next. Skip one, double crochet. And again, you do that 5 times. Skip one, double crochet into the next. Skip one, double crochet into the next. Skip one, double crochet into the next. And you should have 4 chains left. If you're making a bigger piece, then you'll need to pause it and continue doing that decrease followed by the increases until you have these 4 remaining chains. When you do get to the 4 remaining chains, this is how you will work this end of the row. What you'll do is you'll skip that first chain and then you'll work 2 double crochets into each of the last 3 chains. Now, if you're working the blanket pattern, the lapgahn size, you should have 136 stitches. For the gauge swatch, you should have, let's double check. You should have 51 stitches if you're working the gauge swatch. And again, if you're wanting to make this in another size and you need the number of stitches and chains, that's all worked out for you over on the blog in the free written version of this pattern. So now we're at the end of row 1 and we're ready to work into row 2. For row 2, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1. Then we're going to turn our work. The row 2 and all odd numbered rows are the wrong side of the fabric that is facing you. And what we're going to do for row 2 is very simple. We're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So to do that, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. 2 loops are on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. And that's your first single crochet completed. Again, into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and that's your next single crochet completed. I'll show you that one more time. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and that's your next single crochet completed. If you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch across, meet me back here when you get to the very last stitch of the row where we're going to be working into those skipped 3 chains so we can work that together. I'll meet you back here in just a moment. All right, so I'm back and I'm at the end of row 2, and what we have left to work is this last stitch into the top of those skipped 3 stitches. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my stitch marker out of the way, and when you're removing your stitch marker, make sure that you take note of where it was placed, because that's where you're going to be inserting your hook. I'm going to move that out of the way, and then I'm just going to insert my hook into the top of the chain. Depending on how tightly you did your foundation chain, that might be a little tricky, but you're just going to work your 1 single crochet into the top of your chain. All right, and now we're ready to move into row 3. For row 3, we're going to yarn over and chain up 3. There's 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to turn our work. Now again, all the odd numbered rows, the right side of the fabric is facing you. Now again, if you want to keep track of that turning chain so you know where to work into, place that stitch marker into the 3rd chain that you created, and you can find that easily in the next row. So for row 3, it's worked almost the exact same as row 1, but there is a slight difference. Where we work our stitches is going to be different. We're going to be working all of the stitches in row 3 in the back loop only. So when you take a look at the tops of your stitches, you can see that there are 2 strands. There's one that's furthest from you here and one that's closest to you here. The one that is closest to you is called the front loop only, and the one furthest from you is the back loop only. So when we're working into the front loop, we're going to be inserting our hook up through the top of this stitch to pick up just that back loop. And then you'll complete your stitch as you normally do. And so all of the stitches in this row are worked in the back loop only. So for row 3, we're going to work a double crochet in the back loop only of the first stitch. All right. Then we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. Again, we're working in that back loop only. All right, and then again, up through the top of the stitch, pick up that back loop only, and then double crochet twice into the next stitch here. So now we're going to do our valley repeat. And again, those are our decreases. So when we're doing our decreases, again, you're going to skip 1 stitch and then double crochet once into the next stitch. And because we're in row 3, we're doing everything in the back loop only. So skip 1 stitch, back loop only, double crochet. And we're going to do that 5 times. So skip 1, back loop only, double crochet. Skip 1 stitch, back loop only, double crochet. All right, so we've got 3. We're going to do this 2 more times. All right, so now that we have our 5 double crochets completed, we're going to skip 1 stitch, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets in the same stitch in the back loop only. So again, skip 1 chain or stitch, sorry, and then back loop only, double crochet twice in the next stitch. All right, because now we're at the peak of our ripple and we need to create 6 pairs of double crochets in order to do all of our increases. So we've already done that once, and now we need to do 5 more pairs of double crochet. So again, that's 2 double crochets worked in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. So there's 1 and 5. All right, so again, let's take a look at our fabric. We've got our decreases followed by our increases, and we're going to repeat these decreases followed by our increases all the way across our row until there are 4 stitches left to complete. So if you'd like to pause your video and start doing your decreases and then followed by your increases all the way across the row, I'll meet you back here when there are 4 stitches left to be worked. All right, so I'm back and I have 4 stitches left to be worked in this row. And what we're going to do is we're going to skip that next stitch and we're going to work 2 double crochets into the back loop only of the last 3 stitches. So back loop only, 2 double crochets into each of these last 3 stitches. All right, so that is row 3 complete, and we're ready to move into row 4. So we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. And now in this pattern, I think you might find that the odd number rows might be your favorite, because every odd numbered row in this pattern, so we're on row 4, we're just working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. There's no thought here really. It's just 1 single crochet into each stitch across. And we've already done 1 row of that. So I'll ask that you pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. And I'll meet you back here at the end of row 4 to show you how we're moving into row 5. All right, so moving into row 5, we're going to create a chain of 3 to turn our work. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop until we have 3 chains. Then we're going to turn our work. And again, this is now an odd numbered row, so the right side of the fabric is facing us. So for row 5, it is worked almost exactly the same as row 3, but we're not working in the back loop only. We're just working under both loops as we normally would. So working into that first stitch, we're going to double crochet. And then we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. All right, so now we're at the point where we start our decreases to go into the valley. So we're going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet. And we're going to do that 5 times. So skip 1, double crochet, skip 1, double crochet, skip 1, double crochet. So we are at 4, skip 1 and double crochet for 5. And then we're going to skip 1 stitch, and now we're at the peak where we're going to start our increases. So we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 6 stitches. And 6. All right, so this is where we're at this point. Now, again, for the rest of this row, we're going to continue to alternate between the decreases and the increases. So if you'd like to start doing your decreases now, followed by your increases, and continue to flip back and forth between the 2 until you have 4 stitches remaining, I'll meet you back here when there are 4 stitches left to be worked, and I'll show you how we'll finish off this row. All right, so I'm back and I have 4 stitches remaining in this row. And what we're going to do is we're going to skip 1 stitch and work 2 double crochets into each of the remaining 3 stitches. All right, so now we're ready to move into row 6, and row 6, it's our favorite row. We're going to yarn over, chain up 1, turn our work, and we're working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So if you'd like to pause your video and meet me back here when you get to the last stitch of row 6, because we're going to be changing colors moving into row 7, and I'd like to show you how to do that. So do all of the stitches in row 6 except for the last stitch, and I'll meet you back here to show you how we're going to do that last stitch. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, so we're here and we're at the end of row 6, and we're getting ready to change colors. Now, changing colors is totally optional. If you'd like a solid colored blanket, or if you'd like to just change up the frequency of your colors, you don't have to change your colors here. But for me, in the main sample here, we did change colors in row 7 from color A to color B. And in the sample, the color B is Surf, and we're just going to be changing here to this color Agave. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our last stitch of the row. We're going to insert into the top of the turning chain, yarn over and pull up a loop like we're going to do a normal single crochet. Then we're going to drop our old color, and then we're going to bring in the new color. So we're just going to fold the yarn over the hook to do a yarn over, and then we're going to hold tension on that yarn and pull the new yarn through both loops on our hook to change colors and to complete our last stitch. And now we're ready to move on to row 7. So row 7 is a repeat of row 3. So we're going to yarn over and chain up 3 and turn our work. And then we're going to be working all of the stitches in the back loop only. So again, back loop only, double crochet into that first stitch. Then we're back loop only, double crochet twice into each of the next 2 stitches. Right. Then we're going to do our decreases. So we're going to skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the back loop of the next. Skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the back loop of the next. And again, we're going to do that a total of 5 times. There's 3, 4, and 5. And now we're up into the peak. So we're going to skip 1 and work 2 double crochets in the back loop only in the next 6 stitches. Oh, sorry. We're at 5 and now we're at 6. Help if I can count. All right. So now again, we've now done our valley, our decreases, and our peak, our increases. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do these alternating between the decreases and the increases until we have 4 stitches left to be worked. And again, all of these stitches are worked in the back loop only. So if you'd like to pause your video, meet me back here in just a moment. When you have 4 stitches left to be worked, I'll show you how you finish off this row. So now that we are at the end of the row, we have 4 stitches left to be worked. We're going to skip 1 stitch and we're going to back loop only, work 2 double crochets into each of the remaining stitches. All right, so this is what our piece should look like at this point. We're ready to move into row 8. Row 8, again, is our favorite row because we're going to chain up 1 and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, or stitch across. And it is a repeat of row 4, just that 1 single crochet into each stitch across. If you'd like to pause your video, meet me back here at the end of the row. We'll show you how we're moving into row 8. And if you haven't already done so, you can go ahead and cut your old color, your first color, because we won't be using that again for some time. So I'll meet you back here in just a few moments. All right, for row 9, and then you're going to do a repeat of row 5. And so we're going to chain up 3, 3, and turn your work. And again, we're doing the same row every other row. So again, your odd number rows, they're the single crochet, and on your, even number rows are your single crochet, and on your odd number rows, you're doing these double crochet rows where we alternate between our decreases and our increases. The only difference is when you're doing a repeat of row 3, you're going to do those back loop only stitches. So in this row here, we're doing a repeat of row 5, which is just working back under both of those loops as normal. So double crochet in the first stitch and then 2 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to do our decreases. So we're going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet into the next. Skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. And we're doing that a total of 5 times. So here's 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 6 stitches. All right, so again, we've done our decreases. We're back up at the peak with our increases. And again, for the rest of the row, you're just going to alternate between those decreases and those increases until you have 4 stitches remaining. So if you'd like to pause your video and do the decreases followed by the increases until you have 4 stitches remaining, I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you how to finish off the row. So we've got 4 stitches left, and what we'll do is we'll skip 1 stitch and then we'll work 2 double crochets into each of the remaining stitches. So after we're finished with row 6 here, we've already established our row repeat that we need to do. And so row 6 is this gray line here with the ridges. And so that row 6, it's an even numbered row. So that means we did our single crochets. So starting in row 7, we start to do our row repeats. So row 3 is our repeat for row 7. So row 7, we repeat row 3. Row 8, we repeat row 4. And row 4 is our single crochets. And then row 9, we repeat row 5. And so again, row 5 is the same as row 3, but it's just not worked in the back loop only. And we've done this here so that way you get a break from the back loop only every couple of rows. So you should have 3 rows in between rows where you have to do your back loop only. So the row repeat is row 3, row 4, row 5, row 4, and you're just going to keep repeating those patterns. So again, a row 3, back loop only, row 4, single crochet, row 5, both loops, row 4, single crochet. All right, and then we have a color repeat. And again, this is totally optional if you don't want to change colors as often as this. If you want to change colors more than this, you can do that. But this is the color repeat that I used for the Teal Tempest Blanket in my sample. All right, so we did 6 rows here of color A, then I would do 6 rows here of color B. Then I did 6 rows of color C, which was the peninsula. Then I did 8 rows of color D, and color D was that light teal color, which is called tundra. And so we do A, B, C, and D, D being the widest section of color because for me, in my head, when I was doing it, it reminds me that I'm going to start mirroring my colors after I do this section. So I do 8 rows of D, and then I start working my colors backwards. I do 6 rows of C, 6 rows of B, and 6 rows of A. So that's how we cycle through our colors in the pattern. So we're just doing 6 rows of A through C, your first 3 colors, 8 rows of your fourth color, and then you work backwards for through your first 3 colors to finish off the color repeat. Again, that's just how I did it for my blanket. You can do it however you'd like. If you want to weave in less ends, you can change colors even less often than that. It's totally up to you. But that's it. That's how we do the Teal Tempest Ripple Blanket. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com, where you've got tons of free crochet patterns, many of which have step-by-step video tutorials. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. Please leave those in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.